little dose of George Orwell over the weekend helped me to understand where the Democrats are going these days. The Washington Post has a story today. Parents claim they have the right to shape their kids' school curriculum. They don't. That's the headline. It's a piece written by an educator and historian. And it's right there in the Washington Post, so it must be true that parents have no role in educating their children. Turn them over to the state. That goes to 1984, too. No more marriage. The women will be inseminated by the state, and then their children will be taken pre-K and turned over to the state. The Democrats are pushing for that now. Very, very Orwellian.
This is the Chris Plante Show.
Crazy. Yeah, this story in the Washington Post, parents claim they have the right to shape their kids' school curriculum. They don't. That's the headline in the Washington Post today. And it's typed up by two radical leftists, Jack Schneider and Jennifer Berkshire. And they're educators. They're leftists is what they are, more importantly. In their search for issues, it's an anti-Republican, pro-communist, pro-George Orwell 1984 kind of piece in the Washington Post. And their search for issues that will deliver Congress in 2022. Now, not everything is actually about that. This is common sense, straight up. If there were no elections ever to be held again, this would still be an issue. So they opened with a lie. Let's just start with that. Jack Schneider and Jennifer Berkshire. They're so political that that's the only prism through which they see everything. In their search for issues that will deliver Congress in 2022, conservatives have begun to circle around the cause of, quote, parents' rights, end quote. Parents, and it's mocking in tone. They're already assaultive on conservatives who think that they have a role in raising their children, you see? But Karl Marx and, Big Brother don't think so. That's why they want to have pre-K, to take your children away while they're in diapers and start indoctrinating them to the ways of the party, capital T, capital P. In Indiana, they type, Republican Attorney General Todd Rokita recently introduced a Parents' Bill of Rights. How dare he? That asserts that, quote, education policy and curriculum should accurately reflect the values of Indiana families, end quote. How dare they? This is an outrage. This is at the Washington Post, and these leftists from New England, they think that Upper West Side Manhattan transgender, drug-addicted, broken family values should be the order of the day. And that's what they plan on implementing across the country. In Florida, the legislature, they hate Florida because Ron DeSantis may be the next president of the United States. In Florida, the legislature passed an even more comprehensive bill assuring that the state and its public schools cannot infringe on the, quote, fundamental rights, end quote, of parents. How dare they? A growing number of states are allowing parents to sue school districts. What do you mean allowing? That teach banned concepts. And in Virginia, Republican Glenn Youngkin has made parents' rights a centerpiece of his campaign for governor, staging Parents Matter rallies and declaring, I believe parents should be in charge of their kids' education. Now, of course, what they don't mention here, and we have the audio soundbite of Terry McAuliffe saying that he believes that parents should have no role in their education. Now, this is a kind of neo-fascism. It's kind of authoritarianism, where you take children away, strip them away from their parents, you demolish the nuclear family. All of this is in George Orwell's 1984. Some of it is in Karl Marx's Das Kapital. Here's what McAuliffe said. Here's what McAuliffe said. I know it's in there somewhere.
I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out, make their own decisions. So, yeah, I stopped the bill that I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
Yeah, there you go. And Glenn Youngkin, on the other hand, said, I believe parents should be in charge of their kids' education. See, this is the statists versus the Americans. Authoritarian, that's Terry McAuliffe, or American, that's Glenn Youngkin. Pretty straightforward proposition. You shouldn't raise your children. You shouldn't be in charge of what your children are taught. Your values should not be passed along to your children, because that's actually what they're saying. When do the interests of parents and children diverge, they ask. Generally, it occurs when the parents' desire to inculcate a particular worldview denies the child's exposure to other ideas and values that an independent young person might wish to embrace or at least entertain. No, that's none of your damn business. Just for openers, girls. You people are really something. As the political scientist Robert Reich, he's Robert Reich III. He's the Third Reich. He's of course a Clinton administration official, so naturally they quote him, has argued, minimal autonomy requires, especially for its civic importance, that a child be able to examine his or her own political values and beliefs and those of others with a critical eye. Yeah, that might be like a civics class or something. I don't think we teach that anymore. We teach rioting and protest. And transgender. Is there a major in transgenderism, transgender studies? They have women's studies. I think it would be bigoted to not have transgender studies, wouldn't it? Just amazing. You can't study them? Yeah, it might be. It's a little scientific. All right, so this is the Washington Post arguing that you should have no say, and they got a couple of academics to make the argument that you should have no say in the education of your children, and they believe that. And this is, I believe, that's essentially, well, it's statism for sure. It's a type of fascism, of neo or otherwise. And people like to use neo in front of things. That doesn't really float me, whether it's neo or traditional. But these people, let me just say, are truly awful. And they are statists, and they want to take your children away, as the communists were always fond of doing as well.
We've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families, and recognize that kids belong to whole communities.
Yeah, that's right. Belong to whole communities, not to your parents. It's the collective, you see. That's the thing about that. Now, there's another kind of ridiculous story in the Washington Post. When I say kind of, it's entirely ridiculous. And over the weekend, where they were making the argument, that these terrible, awful Republicans are saying bad things about Joe Biden, and there's a chant, which we all know, beat Joe Biden. We have and we see him at college football games and at concerts, and we've heard the chants and the cleaned up chant because of the Talladega 500, and Brandon Brown won the Talladega 500, and the NBC News sports broadcaster woman made a little joke because the crowd at Talladega was chanting the somewhat vulgar chant of beat Joe Biden.
Brandon, you also told me you can hear the chants from the crowd. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon became the thing. We have Let's Go, Brandon sportswear and coffee mugs and hats at the Chris Plant store on Al Gore's amazing internet. So the Washington Post, they have decided to take umbrage with this harsh language, and they typed up a piece on behalf of the Biden White House and the Democrat Party, and an attack on Republicans. So it's a twofer for them. Biden critics hurl increasingly vulgar taunts is the headline. And Ashley Parker and Carissa Wolf typed up the story. There are actually two other reporters on the story, too. So there were a total of 4 reporters on this phony story. If you go to the bottom of the story, you see that they had also Sean Sullivan and Matt Visor. Oh, wait, and Dave Weigel. I apologize. It was 5 journalists working on the story. And they're very upset. And it's in such poor taste for people to taunt Joe Biden with the beat Joe Biden chant. And then they're also upset with the Let's Go Brandon, because, they're well, I can't use the word I'm thinking. They're weak, feckless clowns, and they're not journalists at all. It's a thin-skinned gang of Democrats who, by the way, started all of this stuff years ago. Boise, Idaho is the dateline, though. Most of them are not in Boise, 5 reporters. And they attack some people in Boise for having signs in front of their houses and complaining about $4 a gallon gas and about the debacle in Afghanistan and about COVID-19 mandates. And so they attack everybody in this story. And then they say that they point out that on Wednesday, the president visited Scranton, Pennsylvania. He was greeted at the corner of Biden Street by and there's a Biden freeway, President Biden Freeway there, expressway outside of Scranton as well, because it's a cult. He's a disaster of a president. You're going to have to take it down after a while. But he was greeted on the corner of Biden Street by a woman holding a handmade sign that said, "Beep, Joe Biden," with the American flag as the vowel in the offending word. See, they're very prudish when it comes to this sort of thing. And back in Boise, Rod Johnson, a retired gunsmith, they hate that, had hung a blue flag from his roof on his house that said, "Beep Biden." And underneath in smaller letters it said, "And beep you for voting for him," okay? And then they're very upset about this. And then they try to turn it into a racial issue because they're the left and they kill 40% of the black population. But never mind that. And then they go on to say that they're also upset that people are saying, "Let's go Brandon." Let's go Brandon, which is the PG version. We've been talking about this since it started. Let's go Brandon. The result has been a proliferation of chants in recent months. They're very upset of "Let's go Brandon." How dare you say "Let's go Brandon"? Now, let's keep a couple of things in mind here. The Democrats have been using these vulgar words for a very, very long time in the context of politics and attacking. We had what do you like? We got first of all, let's go to some politicians. Let's go to the before we get to the entertainment people, right? And where does that start, Mike? On to what is it? Number 18. Soundbite number 18 is where it begins. That's on page 6 of our very complete thing. Rashida Tlaib is a Democrat member of the House of Representatives, not a gunsmith in Boise. And the Washington Post is just fine with Rashida Tlaib saying this while President Trump was in the White House.
We're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
And the crowd cheers. And they couldn't be more excited. They're titillated by the whole thing. She's a member of Congress, a member of the vaunted squad, a hero of the revolution. And that's okay, much worse than "Beep Joe Biden" or "Let's go Brandon." And "Let's go Brandon" is too harsh for the Washington Post, too.